By listening to this podcast, you agree not to use this podcast as medical advice to treat any medical condition in either yourself or others, including but not limited to patients that you are treating. Consult your own physician for any medical issues that you may be having.
Welcome to Dead Men Talking, where we talk about how our mothers were right. We are what we eat. And now your hosts, Frank and Bill.
Dead Men Talking?
Yeah.
Well, why do we name it that, Frank?
Well, honestly, I was thinking about this the other day, and for how many times I've almost died in my life, from being shot to stabbed to robbed to actually beat up by gangs and put in the hospital. The thing that almost took me out, gangs.
That's okay. Okay.
The thing that almost took me out is my blood pressure in my job. So
you can see it. Well, I was beat up by a gang, but my job took me out.
Yeah, that's not a thing I want on my tombstone as a real badass. Got taken out by blood pressure.
Yeah, Dead Men Talking is an appropriate title for this podcast because you were with me when I stepped on a sea urchin. And which I'm still, for those of you that have never stepped on a sea urchin, which I'm assuming is many of you, it's not a pleasant experience.
I felt bad because when I heard you scream, the loudest scream I've ever heard, I walked on water. All I thought was shark. I said, I'm getting the hell out of here. I meant to save you, by the way. I didn't mean to tell you that.
Get out of the water. No, it's not a shark. Bill stepped on a sea urchin. Yeah, well, it was that, and then of course, we had the famous spider incident, the necrotic, flesh-eating brown recluse spider that bit me in the back of the calf. And when I found out about that, I'm like, Doc, what is it? He said, oh yeah, you've been bitten by a flesh-eating spider. I said, what can I do about it? He said, go home and don't move.
Yeah,
I'm like, great.
I never seen a piece of somebody's calf just fall out.
That was disgusting. And then, of course, as you know, then about 3.5 years ago, I was diagnosed with cancer, and they told me I had about 7 months to live. So, hey, it's a lot longer than 7 months, and I'm here alive. So, Dead Men Talking's a good title.
They call that a hat trick in hockey.
That's right.
It's a pure trifecta.
That's the trifecta of death.
I always said that about you. I was like, man, if there's a weird way to go out, you're going to find it. And every time you do, but you're still here. So we definitely are Dead Men Talking.
Right. So for those of you that don't know, we are not professional podcasters. We're just two guys that want to share some stories about health, life, and not dying.
Exactly. Actually, we're carpet salespeople.
That's what we do.
Came up in the carpet business, fuzzy side up, and I think through the reason I'm sitting in front of you, Bill, and the reason I wanted to do this, because I started to see my friends start to pass away. I lost my best friend Dan Abital this year from a heart attack while he was cooking dinner with his family on Mother's Day. 52 years old. I watched you, one of my best friends, get sick 3.5 years ago, and just felt helpless. And I really wanted to take the things that you were telling me, incorporate them in my life so I didn't die. I got a little girl. It's 1 year old. I got another baby on the way. And honestly, I just wanted to live a healthier life but still be me. So I'm trying to take some of the things you're telling me, incorporate it in my life, but also trying to figure out what works in my lifestyle, because I don't know if I could go all the way to the extreme you did to stay alive.
Well, and I think that's what's unique about this podcast is that, I have cancer. So I'm a chronically ill patient. So I'm battling something that you're not. And so what I do is very extreme because I have to. And so the reason I wanted to do this is because I wanted to share my journey with people and hopefully prevent people from getting into my situation. Hopefully you never have to deal with a cancer diagnosis. Hopefully my friends and family can learn from my journey and prevent getting cancer, because there are so many things we can do to stay healthy and prevent cancer or any chronic disease, but we got to know what it is. And so that's what this is about, is giving information that a lot of people are unaware of. I was completely unaware.
Oh, me too. I mean, when you started telling me, one, you weren't supposed to be here. They told you had 7 months to live. I was there. I remember, and it's probably one of the saddest days of my life. And that hopeless feeling that you have as a friend looking in, you want to Google, you want to find some sort of magic elixir that you could bring to your friend and say, "Hey, I got you," or "Can I make this better?" And there's nothing like that out there. And I was hoping to put this together and get to people so we could offer some semblance of hope and maybe make people feel a little bit better and smile and get back to a normal life where they could spend time with their family.
Well, and that's the goal. That's really what we wanted to do. We just want to give back and share our stories. And it is a serious topic, but we also want to have a little bit of fun with it because we've had a long working relationship and friendship. You know, Frank and I have been working together for, oh gosh, how many years is it? 15? 17 years. 17 years we've been working together at the same company, and we've been successful at it. And I want you to stay healthy for your family and your kids. And I clearly want to stay healthy. I want to stay around for my family. And I think sharing it from our different perspectives, whereas I'm full on, I do crazy stuff. I wouldn't recommend for the average person doing what I do every day for your health. However, I mean, it's very extreme. However, there are things that I do that I know can help everybody.
Yeah, I mean, some of the stuff. If you want to do it, if you want to shit your pants every day, cleanse it out, baby, cleanse it out. But I want to sit here on the other side of the table and actually do some of these things and give people real world feedback on what works and what doesn't, because I don't have cancer. Well, but I don't want to have cancer.
Exactly. And I've been asked many times by people that say, "Hey, Bill, if you didn't get cancer, would you have changed and done all these things?" And the answer is absolutely not. I wouldn't have. First off, I wouldn't have even known about it, but it would have been such a dramatic change in my life that I wouldn't have done it. So I'm forced to do it. And I'll tell you, a lot of these things that we're going to talk about in our podcast, I didn't believe would work. As a matter of fact, I thought a lot of it was just bunk.
Well, and I can't believe you changed that quickly, because you and I were the 2 a.m. not leaving the bar. If a client was out, we were staying out and drinking shots of whatever the shot du jour of that month was, from everything from
Baby Guinness. There we go, Baby Guinness. Yeah.
To falling over, to being asked to leave bars. I mean, but all in the efforts of work is what I used to tell my wife. It's all work, I swear.
Honey, it's all work. One more beer, one more round. I'll share my story with everybody so they know it. So for anybody listening that's gotten a cancer diagnosis, you'll understand where I'm coming from here. And we'll talk about a lot of things in the podcast. But so let's start, and I'll tell you my story. And Frank, you can jump in where you came in and where you saw me. But like many people, typically men, we're terrible about getting a health and fitness checkup. I was bad about it. I think I went 10 years without actually getting a physical, because I felt great. I mean, I really did. And I thought, well, I'm healthy. Why do I need to go see a doctor, And here comes one morning, I started feeling bad. And just like everybody else, it was, the fall comes and everybody starts getting sick. So I thought, maybe I just got a little cold, or I'm feeling bad, or I'm overweight, which I was overweight. And then I'm feeling worse. Christmas comes around and I am miserable. People are telling me, "Bill, you don't look good. You need to go see a doctor." And that's a sign for anybody that somebody tells that to.
Friends. You look horrible.
You look horrible. You look like you're going to pass out at any moment. Maybe you should go see someone. Yeah, so, after Christmas, my wife demands that I go see a doctor. And I've been laying on the couch and I ached. I was coughing. I felt weak. I should have known. I mean, I did know. Inside, I knew something was wrong, but I still didn't do anything. I just thought it would go away. And so I go see the doctor after New Year's, and the doctor gets my blood work. The next morning, it's a Friday morning, I'm in the car. I'm driving around Charlotte on my way to, I don't even remember where I was going, some appointment. The doctor calls me and she says, "Bill, you need to go to the hospital right away. I don't have all your labs, but what I've seen, it is not good. Go there immediately." Fast track, I'm sitting there in the ER. One doctor comes in. The doctor says, "Oh, these labs are not good. But your history, you've been healthy your whole life. Let me take a look at some things. We'll be back to you. Next thing you know, the nephrologist comes in. I didn't know what a nephrologist was. That's a kidney doctor.
Yeah, I still don't.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for that. I didn't want to put my ignorance on the radio.
So, and the nephrologist comes in and says, Bill, it's amazing. You've been healthy all your life. I've looked at your records, but you're almost in renal failure. Your kidneys are almost failing. And it's just, you're an anomaly. And I thought, well, that doesn't sound good. And so he left and said, we'll get back with you. And then the third doctor come in, and I called him Dr. Death. He's actually a great guy, and I've become very close with him. But the oncologist comes in. And when the oncologist comes in, I know that's bad. I know what an oncologist is. And he said, I've got some bad news. You have cancer. And we know it's a form of a multiple myeloma, but we don't know how bad it is. And then, of course, they admitted me to the hospital and did a bone marrow biopsy, which is a really fun procedure where they take a giant needle and shove it right into your bones to extract bone marrow. It's not pleasant, Frank.
Is this before or after you texted your wife all this?
Yeah, that was. Yeah, for those of you that decide to text your wife, you're going to the hospital, I'm just going to tell you, don't do it.
Yeah. No, actually call that one in.
You call that one in. She was not happy. She flipped out, of course, and then came to the hospital. But no, that was after that, Frank. We'd gotten through that. So they shoved this giant needle in my bone marrow, pull it out, and that's when the doctor says, I've got some even worse news for you. Your cancer is 1 in a million, and it's very rare. It's the most aggressive form of myeloma, and we're going to try to stop it before it kills you, and we're going to try to do this without having you go into renal failure and put you into dialysis. So it was a really awesome day. Let's just put it that way. It was a challenging day. So that's how my journey started. Like many cancer patients, they find out, they feel bad, or they have some people just go in for a checkup and they find it and discover it. But, the first thing for me was shock and awe. It was just, completely out of the blue. And so that's where my journey started, right there.
Well, I remember the day because I almost wrecked my car when Dana called me, your wife, to tell me, because the last thing I thought, because I was just coming home from Breckenridge. I had been in the hospital with pneumonia from altitude sickness, and I found out the news, and my whole world just shocked. Not for so many reasons, just because you take that common denominator, that status quo, that's the thing that keeps your day going, which you don't even think about. But then when that disappears, or could disappear, you have this realization. I was just turning 40, so they said the midlife kicks in then, which I already had a sports car, so I didn't need to buy that. But I definitely needed to change my lifestyle, because I was full bore on the way I was treating my body, eating and drinking, and then walking in and seeing you in that hospital room. And I think that can relate with a lot of people when you see somebody that you care about that sick and your stomach drops, and there's nothing you can do, no amount of money that you can throw at anything, nothing can make it go away. And that's why I'm sitting at the table doing this podcast, because I see so many people that go through this day every day, and everybody's just looking for some sort of answer or hope. And what you've done is truly remarkable on how you've changed your body, how you've changed your mindset, and the positivity that you put out to the world. And if we could take that and give that to people and box it up and give somebody a semblance of hope and that there is a future, I think that would be a pretty cool day.
Yeah, exactly. And that our greatest hope out of this podcast would be somebody hears this, listens to it, and learns from it, and makes their life better, healthier, stronger, and beats cancer or prevents cancer. That would be the hope, that people can learn from this. And I can tell you, I have spent, as you know, Frank, I have spent almost 4 years now relentlessly studying at nights and on weekends, and reading PubMed documents, and watching docuseries, and meeting with doctors, and reading books about how to heal your body. And So there's a couple things that we want to talk about in this podcast. One of them is how to heal yourself, but also how to help doctors heal you as well. Because, sometimes we do things to our bodies that are counterproductive to what the doctor's trying to do for us. The doctor's trying to heal us, and we're saying, okay, thanks, doc, for the drugs or whatever procedure they're doing to help us. And then we go do things that are destroying it. So we're not working to the same goal. It's like, oh, thanks, doc, for that pill. You made me feel better. Now let me go out and drink all night and eat McDonald's all day. And apparently those two things don't help.
That's what my trainer tells me when I leave. And I'm just like, what do you mean 4 shots of bourbon and tacos that didn't compliment my burpees? I thought that was a pure compliment, but it doesn't, no. But I also want to take the time on this when we go through this is to really give true things that we actually do.
Yeah.
Not use this as a commercial or a way to sell anything. We do that in the carpet world all day long. But debunk some of the stuff, because all my lifestyle changes that I've ever done have all been about my looks. Can I lose weight? Can I get better abs? Can I be healthy? It was never about can I live longer. Now I'm 46. It's can I live longer? Because I want to be here for my kids. So to get through some of the BS, because you go out there and everything has, this is going to make you super strong, but it's not approved or tested by anybody.
Right.
We just put this on here. So now I want to be kind of the guinea pig. If celery juice is the answer to everything, let's give it a whirl.
Let's see what goes. Yeah, you've heard me say before that when you've got a diagnosis like I have, I would eat grasshoppers if there was data and studies and people saying, yeah, eating grasshoppers made me feel great. And I'm, my immune system's, stronger now because of it. And I would do anything. Literally, I've had friends say, well, what would you do? And I said, well, anything that's out there that is proven to be good for your health and immune system, I will try.
Well, take us back there, because that has to be the hardest time for you when you got out, was when you get that diagnosis, that first thing, and they say, hey, you got the most aggressive type of cancer there is. You might not live.
Right.
What goes through your mind?
Well, that's a good question. And I think anybody that's been there, the first thing is absolute fear. Your whole body shakes. And, there I am by myself laying in the hospital, just tears in my eyes. I'm thinking, I'm going to leave my son, who's 10 years old. I mean, my wife and my kid, and he's not going to have a dad. And that was just, for about a minute, it was fear for me. And then instantly it turned, oh my gosh, this young boy, he needs a dad, and so then it turns to them, and, you're laying there and you realize I can't do anything now. I'm stuck. I'm in the my life is in the doctor's hands, and they're just trying to get me to a place that they can release me from the hospital so I can survive for a short period of time, so that they can then see, okay, what protocols could they help me with to let me live for a month, 2 months, 3 months, whatever. And so that's the first thing. You've got to learn to deal with that fear. And we're going to talk about that in some future podcasts in depth. But, that's what I went through. And that was the thing that made me feel just overwhelmed. And then all of a sudden, my friend reached out to me while I was in the hospital, and he sent me an email, and he had changed his health. He had had not a cancer diagnosis, but a chronic illness 25 years before, and he had learned a lot of this stuff and completely changed his life. And so he reached out and said, Bill, I don't want to press too much, but here's a bunch of things I've learned, and I know about cancer, and I know about our bodies, and I know about how to heal naturally. Maybe some of these things could help you. And I started reading. I mean, it was lay there in the hospital while they're sticking me and feeding me with all kinds of drugs and blood and platelets. And I mean, it was, they didn't admit me to the ICU, but they wanted to. They just didn't have a bed. So I had round the clock nurses 24 hours a day giving me platelets and red blood cells and everything just to keep me going. It was intense for a couple weeks. And then when I got out, I had started reading all this stuff about detoxing, which I know you're into right now, and we're talking about. So the first thing I did was I said, okay, I've got to do something to help. And I didn't know anything. And I wasn't even sure I believed it all at that point. I just said, all these people are talking about these things. I got to do something to clean out my system. And so I'll start somewhere. Where should I start? I'll just do a juice cleanse. That was my first, let's try something. And I got to tell you something. If those of you have never had a green juice, that first green juice experience is not a pleasant thing. It is. It was awful, the first.
Just go out in your backyard, take a big scoop of dirt and grass and throw it in your mouth.
That's about right.
That's what it tastes like.
That's about right. And you say, oh, I want a Coke. No, you have a green juice, Bill.
But tell me about this. So we're in Charlotte, North Carolina. We have one of the best cancer centers in probably the U.S., you know. But what happens if you're in a small town? What happens if you're in Columbia, South Carolina, or Jacksonville, Florida, or somewhere like that, and you go to the doctor? I mean, personally, I would say, well, I'm in front of an oncologist, so you must be good, so I'm going to do whatever you say.
Right. Yeah. You know, for me, I was fortunate. You know, I have a great caregiver in my wife, Dana, and my sister, Nina, was there at the hospital. They were unbelievable at taking information down. But as we learned about my diagnosis and how rare it was, they began scouring the internet for what is this disease about, what doctors treat it, who are experts. And it just so happens that we have an expert in Charlotte who had come from MD Anderson, and he'd been from the best hospitals in the world for multiple myeloma, and he was in Charlotte at Levine Cancer. So through an unbelievable turn of events, through a friend of my wife's, we actually got on his calendar, which is hard to do, and on his agenda. But he had treated a friend of my wife's husband, and so they were friends, and he knew them, and so we got in to see him, which was unbelievable. And I would encourage anybody that's in any town, first do the research and find out, learn about your disease, learn about your diagnosis, and then match doctors and research doctors that know this and come highly recommended. I would never just, you know, this is such a specialized world these days that I think you really need to find out exactly what you're dealing with and you know, talk to some people that are experts in that, not just necessarily a general oncologist.
Well, I think that's fair, because I think about the people I graduated college with, and, you know, I graduated, you know, pretty high in my class, but my friend Matt, you know, he had bong resin on every fingertip and actually still smells like it, but has the same diploma that I did.
That's right.
And if I had to choose, I would probably call me on certain topics, unless it was about a strand of weed, and I would call Matt. So I think you have to think about, you know, there are different levels of doctors out there.
You're listening to Dead Men Talking.
You are listening to the Dead Men Talking podcast, brought to you by Helix Lifestyle. Helix Lifestyle is a philanthropic company discussing the healing process through research and clinical success. If you know someone who has cancer or whose life is impacted by chronic illness, please share this podcast with them. Thanks for listening.
Listen, I will be the first to say that my nursing staff that I have worked with for years, they're amazing. The doctors I have are amazing. But I know, because we did the research, I know the people that care for me are the best in their fields. Yeah, sure. Could I go to other cancer clinics, you know, Dana-Farber, Sloan Kettering, or there's a lot of wonderful cancer hospitals around the country. But when we identified the doctor and he was in Charlotte, it was a real gift that he was here, and I got to be able to.
So it's not the center, it's the individual.
Yeah, I think it's the doctor. I mean, yes, the centers are great. They have the staff that understands how to treat various cancers, you know, Mayo Clinic, amazing places. But I would search for the doctor that knows the most about your diagnosis, and then, you know, go with who you feel you connect with and that kind of thing. So that was the first thing that we did.
Well, I remember, and the other thing I remember coming to visit you when I could is just the amount of noise and how restless you were. And I mean, any advice you could give to the folks that have somebody in the hospital, or you actually are the person sitting in that bed, things that they could have or their loved ones could bring to them to make their stay a little bit better.
Frank brought me these noise-canceling headphones. Now, it was a wonderful gesture for Frank to bring me these things, but it was amazing how it changed my experience at the hospital, because all they do is stick you all day long. I mean, I was like, what are you guys, vampires? You're looking for blood constantly. And the daggum hospital is so loud, beeping noises. You can't sleep. I mean, you can't rest. I don't even know how you heal inside a hospital, because it's not conducive for healing. But I put those noise-canceling headphones on, and I could sleep. I could tune out all the beeping and buzzing. And even when they would have to pull the pods out of my ears to say, Mr. Guantolo, yeah, it's time to do this or whatever. That is one thing I would encourage. Things like pillows and comfortable clothing and, noise-canceling earphones and just things that make you comfortable from home, that you forget that you're going to be in the hospital, or you don't know you're going to be in the hospital for a few days or a few weeks. Then you're going to want those comforts of home to make it at least a more enjoyable experience.
I had a question I always wanted to ask you. Like, when you saw people coming in and, they always saw big, strong Bill, and you never talk about your feelings, or, you don't even tell people when your birthday is. Then they come in and they look at you and you're weaker and you've never seen that. I mean, how are you able to deal with that and the way people talk to you? Or is it different? Was it, was that on your mind at all? Or
it was. And obviously, you realize your mortality, and as you and I work incredibly hard. We're relentless. We get up early. We worked all day. We'd work nights. We'd get up. I'd get on a plane, fly somewhere. You'd fly somewhere. I mean, that's just who we were. And so to be laying in a bed completely incapacitated and at the mercy of your caregivers was not a normal place for me. It's not a comfortable place for me. I don't like to be a burden to anybody. And so that was a hard thing emotionally and mentally to deal with. But I will tell you that the nursing staff I had was incredible. And there was one nurse I remember 2 a.m. I can see her face, and we would have these long conversations while she's giving me blood. And she explained cancer to me. She explained blood levels and white count levels and what they meant. And I just kept on asking questions, and she would tell me this. But one thing she said to me resonated. She said, cancer does not define who you are. And she gave me this confidence to be like, no, it doesn't. It's just a thing that's happening to my body right now. But it gave me mental strength, which also gave me emotional strength, because I started thinking, she's right. This is not going to define me. I'm going to rise from the ashes somehow from this. I didn't know how. I just felt like, okay, you're right. And she told me, she said, don't let this mentally beat you down. And that's when my mind began to turn. It really did.
Expand on that, because, I've always, through my salesmanship and, and the things that I've accomplished, Napoleon Hill's book, Think and Grow Rich, has always been one of my favorites. If I could visualize it, I could make it happen. But I've never had to overcome my body telling me it can't.
Right.
You were the most positive person. You always told me do whatever we put mind to, right? So what's that moment like?
Well, and so there's a couple things to this. I mean, for me, obviously, I'm a faithful guy. I go to church, believe in God, and I carry that with me. And it's amazing when you're laying there, you would think that'd be the first thing I thought of, but it wasn't. At first it was fear and, oh my gosh, what's going on? And then something hit me, and I felt like there's something bigger than me here at work. And when I realized that, I'm like, oh yeah, God's here to help me through this. Let me lean on him, because that's what he asks me to do. And so I started feeling differently about my situation, started being like, oh, it's going to be okay. And then nurses, this is what flipped me out more than anything. Nurses began coming in and telling me that. And that was one of those things that emotionally really just impacted me. And they gave me courage and strength. And then my normal brain started kicking in, and I started thinking, okay, be positive. This is not the end. Let me somehow mentally stay strong and help the doctor physically. And that's what a lot of this conversation is going to be about, is how do we help the doctor and how do we help ourselves? But that's what it was. It was this overall feeling from this nursing staff that were like, don't let this, I mean, because they can see it on your face. You're like, I mean, look, they're not new to this. They're like, oh, another cancer patient. Yeah, how do these people feel? And they could see it's mentally and emotionally beating me up. And they're like, don't let it do that. This is not the end. This doesn't define you. And here I'm going, well, they're telling me I may not live. And they're looking at me like, I understand that. Don't let that define you. And I'm not sure I knew what it meant then, but looking back, it was the impetus that gave me strength to continue learning and to drive through this thing. And I continue the journey today of learning and, learning how to care for myself and eat. I mean, every day, like when we talk about things, like Frank's right now on a juice experience. What the wild celery juice ride right now?
Oh yeah, the 30-day celery challenge, or as I like to call it, jog and poop my pants.
For those of you who never had green juice, when you first do it, let me just tell you something. It's gonna have an impact on your system.
It is definitely nature's bulldozer. But honestly, it's mind blowing on the effects that it's had on my body so far. I've had tendonitis in both Achilles that I couldn't even walk in the mornings until I stretched it. Went to every doctor, had every X-ray, everybody look at 3-4 doctors. Everybody said I just need to stretch more. Nonsense. 3 years I've been dealing with this. 14 days of juicing, celery juice by itself, 16 ounces in the morning, and then water with lemon 30 minutes after that. And then just doing my normal diet, going out and having drinks with clients and, drinking a martini and having a bourbon and not to excess, but still having it. And I can jump rope again. And it doesn't look like a golf ball in the back of my ankle. So I'm sitting across the table wanting to learn, not knowing I have nowhere near the knowledge that you do, but wanting to learn, wanting to try these things because I don't want to have cancer. And I think you told me 1 out of 2. What's the stat?
1 out of 2 men will get cancer in their lifetime, and 1 out of 3 women. I think the stat they say is, 35% of people will get cancer, but it's 1 out of 2 men. That's a straight up epidemic. And I asked 5 different oncologists why I got cancer, and nobody could tell me why. And I thought that's really odd for a disease that we've been studying for 50, 60 years the way we have, and the trillions and trillions of dollars, and they couldn't tell me why. And I thought, that's strange. I need to figure out why I got this. I believe I know why I got it, and we're going to be talking about that in future episodes. But, let me ask you something. When you started reading about juicing and celery, did you believe it was real, or did you think this is a bunch of hooey?
No, I mean, it was. There was an old show back called In Living Color. I think a lot of people. Jim Carrey started there, and there was a skit called The Juice Weasel. It was about Jack Delane, and he looked like your gym teacher in the '80s with those bike shorts with it. You could see his privates. They were so tight, and he'd come out in his muscle shirt, and he was 90 years old, and he was pulling an RV with his teeth through the rope, and. Just where I first heard of juicing, and I thought it was a joke. It was a skit on Saturday Night Live, and and then our friend Ken Baker, who he's 60 and he looks younger than I do. So, I always thought there was something to it, but I always thought, hey, well, I'll have a juice, and then I'm going to go out and drink tequila all night and do my normal life, smoke. I was a smoker. And all the things that I could do, and it would just all balance it out like a calculus equation. If I subtract from this side and add from this side, it's like ordering a salad with a Big Mac. You think it's going to work, but it does it really? But I'm still here, and I'm working on getting my blood pressure down. My blood pressure went up through work and stress and everything to stroke type levels.
Yeah, way up.
Yeah, so where I had to go to the emergency room. I'm still battling that. So I'm still sitting across the table learning. And that's why I think this is going to be so much fun, because I still have a cigarette every once in a while. I still have a shot of bourbon. Multiple. Multiple. My wife's a liquor grub. So we have taste tests, so to speak. And I want to continue to do that, but in moderation. I think anything in moderation could be. So what I'd like to do is honestly find that middle road. You know, I think when we first started talking about this, is that crossroads. You
Right.
could either you find out you bad news. You could either cash in your 401k and go to Vegas and blow it out and have the time of your life and die, or you could choose hope.
Well, it's interesting you say that. So a couple of things. First off, when I started learning this stuff, I thought, okay, there's got to be something to this, but I didn't believe most of it. Fast forward a couple of years, and I remember talking to a friend of my wife's about all that I'd learned, and she looked at me and she said, "Bill, you're speaking another language." And it's when it hit me like a ton of bricks. My whole brain has changed. What I've learned, and I realized 95% of people have no idea what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And if they did, they wouldn't believe it anyways. And I think they're having a healthy skepticism is good on stuff like this, but ignoring it all is dumb.
100%, but there's also so many different demographics. I'll give you a great example. My mother, for instance, my mother is 70. She's 34, is what she says. She'd kill me if I said her age. My mother's a beautiful woman, and but has high blood pressure. Has a stent in her heart, and her exercise is going to the store and shopping. I mean, that's what it is. So, to get to talk about green juice with her, that's not going to happen,
right?
But I finally told her about the podcast. My mother will do anything for me. I said, "Will you try this 3 days a week for a month?" And we're 2 weeks in, and her blood pressure is the lowest it's ever been.
It's just amazing.
Now, is it because she got to go to the doctor to check the medicine? And hopefully the doctor doesn't say, "Stop taking the juice because the medicine's working." Big pharma is going to tell you one thing. But that's my ultimate goal here, is to find that middle ground, to be able to live and enjoy life and not get sick. And if we could find that and debunk some myths along the way and have some fun, but also talk to the people that we actually have helped us, like, our acupuncturist that we both go to.
Yep.
My Charlotte Meditation, who's helped me get my mind right and basically saved my life, because all I cared about was work and being successful. And I did that, but it was going to kill me if I would have stayed on that path.
Right, not sustainable.
Yeah, it wasn't sustainable. I mean, what's the point in making all the money if you're dead?
Right. Hey, I did good.
Man, look at that guy driving my car. That's awesome. Oh, holding my kid too. That'll make you come back from the grave.
Yeah. Oh, exciting. Well, listen, for those of people that have cancer diagnosis, here's what I've learned. So I think there's 3 groups, and this is Bill's just viewpoint on cancer, because I've talked to so many cancer patients over the last few years that call me and say, "Hey, what are you doing? I hear you're doing good and you shouldn't be alive." And I'm like, "No, that's true." Is that there's like 3 groups. There's a group that gets the diagnosis, and like you said, that says, "You know what? I got a cancer diagnosis. They gave me 6 months to live. I'm going to cash in my 401k. I'm going to go travel the world, party, and I'm going to just blow it out." Okay, and that's a fair choice. That's a choice. I've actually talked to friends, and they said that's what they would do. I might have thought I might have done that, but all of a sudden I'm faced with it, and I'm like, no, that's not enough time. I need more time with my family. So I changed that. Then there's people that say, well, I've got it, and I'll do everything the doctor says. I'm not going to blow it out, but what the diagnosis is the diagnosis, and that's it. Okay, that's fair enough. And they ride it out, and they do, if the doctor says you got 18 months and they do the treatments and it's 18 months, they die at 18 months, that's okay. That's what a lot of people choose. Then there's a group that I'm in, which says, I will do anything and everything, research anything and everything to find ways to help me heal. It doesn't mean I get to heal, but that was my mentality. And so that's what this is about for those people that want to know things that I've done, things that other people are doing, things that people are thinking about. That's what we want to talk about. Things that have been, proven through clinical studies to be effective. That's what we want to talk about. that you and I talk about this all the time. We're not doctors. We're just business guys.
And that's why I want to reiterate the point that you were on your deathbed, diagnosed as 7 months to live from cancer. And if you wouldn't have chose the route that you did, you wouldn't be sitting here with me right now. You'd be dead.
Yeah.
And by no means is we're not diagnosis. We're not doctors. I'm not an MD. You're not an MD. But we have so much great information to share with everyone that we're getting asked about anyhow. So why not put it together and give it to people whoever wants to listen?
Exactly. And listen, people can take what they want from it. And we're going to, in future podcasts, we're going to talk about all these things. We'll talk about, what they call them modalities. By the way, I'd never even heard that term. The first time somebody said, all these modalities, I'm like, what are you?
It's very fancy.
What is a modality?
Not only has your food got fancy, your vocabulary has gotten really nice.
Like, what the heck's a modality? And so it's just ways to heal. I thought about it. We talk about doctors, but you think about, go back 300-400 years ago. They called him medicine man. Was the guy that learned how to make people feel better. And they would go to that person in the area or neighborhood or wherever they were, and they said, that guy knows. Okay, what does he know? Well, he would come in, he would give you plants and roots and things like that. Next thing you know, your stomach ache went away. Next thing you know, you had a headache and it went away. Most people don't even realize that aspirin comes from a bark of a tree. It wasn't like the pill didn't get invented. They were using the things to treat people long before they put them in capsule form. And so we're going to talk about that and ways that the things that people have done for hundreds of years that have been effective at making people feel better and improving people's health and their lives. And so that's what we want to talk about.
And I also want to be the guinea pig for some of this, because on the other side of that medicine man was the snake oil man.
Right.
Who was telling you, I got a bottle full of Plaid. And if you drink this, you will never grow old. It's made out of unicorn tears and
unicorn
dreams.
Tears.
And it was fantastic. You'll love it.
You'll love it. Well, that's where snake oil salesmen came from. They would just create this stuff and say, it's going to make your life better. And he was like, that's a bunch of hooey.
It sounds like protein powders.
Right.
It's the same deal in the 21st century. So I think that's going to be the fun part and hopefully the entertaining part for all you listeners. And at the end of the day, we just hope we make some people a little bit happier and make their lives make a little bit more sense and give them a road that they can follow.
Exactly. So we're gonna give you websites and resources to look at. We've got ideas. We want to talk about anything that's on your mind. If you've probably thought about it, we're gonna talk about it. Everything from, like Frank mentioned, acupuncture, herbs, diet, exercise. All the things you know about. But we're gonna get deep with it as to what we feel really works, what's working for me, what's not working. We'll talk about supplementation. We'll have people on here like, one of the biggest things is caregivers, who's involved. I was telling you a story before we started the show about my wife talking to a friend whose husband is not feeling well and she's in the hospital. She has no idea what questions to ask. She literally knows nothing. And so my wife is coaching her. And I was listening to this conversation thinking, we need to have her on to talk about what she learned through the process and how she can help other caregivers and other people going through cancer or a chronic disease. So if you know anybody that is facing this, or if you're facing this, or if you have a friend or family member facing this, let them know about our podcast, and we'll share this information and hopefully make their journey easier and more successful.
One of the hardest parts is you're so far down this road, Bill, is how to take you back to 3.5 years ago, sitting there. So can you tell the listeners just a little bit about our next podcast? And we're going to take you hopefully right from the hospital bed down that journey with you. So
yeah, the next podcast, we're calling it Breathe. So we want to talk about what to do if faced with a diagnosis, because your brain it falls out of your head because you just stop thinking. It's so emotional. So we'll go through that in that podcast. We don't want to be irreverent, but we do want to laugh. Life continues to go on for me as a cancer patient, and walking around all somber all day long just it's not my personality. And why? I'm alive. Oh, do I have cancer? Yes. So should I be bummed about it all day? No, I'm alive. I'm healthy. I'm doing great. So today's a great day. And so I want to be able to laugh at myself. I want to laugh at you sometimes, Frank.
Yeah.
And
And I make jokes when I feel uncomfortable. And that's 90% of the time. I feel awkward in my own skin sometimes.
But what we want this whole podcast to be is a source for you so you don't have to do all the research. If you want to, I'll tell you where it's at. But I'm telling you, I have spent, I don't know, it's got to be 5,000 hours. I mean, just a lot of hours looking at this stuff, and it's a lot. I mean, I'm kind of a health nerd now. You know, if my wife sees me on a Saturday afternoon reading, she's like, "What are you doing?" Well, I'm reading about a new alternative cancer treatment that somebody's doing and says it works, and I'm trying to determine if it's hooey or snake oil or if it's real.
And it's going to be different for everybody.
Yes.
Because, that's what, we're not diagnosing anything. We're just giving things that have worked for you and things that people can test, but always check with your doctor and make sure it works with your body type and your blood type.
Absolutely. Absolutely. One of the most honest things one oncologist told me about 2 years ago, we were talking about drugs in the body. And I said, when I take this drug with this drug, how do we know the impact? And he looked at me straight in the eye and said, they have no idea. And he said, they have not tested every drug with every other drug. Moreover, they have not tested it in your body. And he said, Bill, you are completely unique to you, just like the next person is unique to them. And so every, quote, cure or protocol that they would give you, they don't know. It might work great for one person and not at all for the next. Well, that's true with anything. That's true with your celery juice. Most likely it's going to be good for everybody because there's nothing that's going to really hurt you from it, but it might not work as well for somebody else as it does for you, So, and that's absolutely true with pharmaceutical drugs as well, So we'll get into that. But when he told me that, I about passed out. I'm like, did you just say that out loud? He laughed. He said, they have no idea, Bill. He said, they don't know.
Well, that's why hopefully everyone will tune into our next episode called Breathe. And I'm Frank.
And I'm Bill.
And we are Dead Men Talking.
Thanks for listening.
This has been Dead Men Talking. Tune in to our next episode for more of Frank and Bill.